Bob Ryan, longtime Boston Globe sports columnist and a contributor to Around the Horn, joins us on the program. Bob, thanks for joining us on short notice. What do you make of these new NBA awards?
Well, I guess it's all about the Bucks, and somebody's going to sponsor them, and that's fine. But they'll be. You're not going to please. You know this, Dan. You can't please them all. You can't please people. You can't get a unanimity of opinion about who's deserving of these awards. I am with you on the Kareem versus Michael thing. No slight to Michael, but when are they going to get around to paying homage to Kareem properly? I think.
Yeah.
So that'd be good. But that's I have a nominee for the defensive award that people that quite frankly is a better technical nominee than Hakeem Olajuwon, but I can understand why it would be a little bit of a hesitancy to name an award after Dennis Rodman. Who frankly is arguably the best all-around defender the game has ever known, and that he'd be able to guard anybody from point guards to centers and all that. There's been a few people like that, but he's the best of them all, I think. But he's Dennis Rodman. He's a character, to say the least. Well, that's interesting. I heard somebody yesterday on air complaining about the Havlicek name on the Six-Man Award. And that one, of course, I'll fight that one to the death. I'll fight that one. By the way, when John passed a couple of years ago, he was, always known as the great six-man, and I said it was damning him with faint praise because even as early as his second year in the league, though he was, in fact, not starting games, he was second on that team in minutes played behind Bill Russell, and that remained the case for the whole time he was a six-man. Anyway, it's you know what? We're talking about it. I think that's probably something they like too.
Yeah, I agree with that. And some of these names, like George Mikan, okay, people maybe they'll do some homework there with George Mikan, but most improved, he came in averaging 27 and 15 or something like that.
He never had. No, absolutely no. That's preposterous. Now then again, who would we? I'd have to think now that you bring this up. I'll have to do some thinking. Who would be an appropriate person to name that award after? Who went the farthest? From obscurity to stardom. I'll get back to you on that one, but I don't have it on the top of my head.
Well, I was thinking
the Greek wasn't George Mikan,
the Greek freak, Bob, but he's still playing.
Yeah, right. Well, okay, right. He did. What the average as a rookie? Yeah, that's true. But there's obviously Mikan is. It's just a name. It's nice to have George Mikan remembered, and he could the best nearsighted player of all time. That would be good. He played with glasses his whole career. It was a pre-contact lens world that he lived in. So. Anyway.
Why don't we honor Kareem, though, Bob? I know he missed out on social media. He was not lovable. He's the greatest college player of all time. He made it look maybe too easy, but, it just feels...
I don't know. And in his post-career, he has, become a distinguished... we know he's an intellect. He's an author. He's taken up causes of Native American causes, for example. He's a person. He's a go-to person on any social commentary of the time. And if you're going to start going in terms of all-time IQs in the league, he's going to be in the high in the list. And he never did anything to disgrace the game. He never did. He was never in the wrong part of the newspaper that I know of. He has the greatest signature shot in the history of basketball. The most famous weapon ever, singular weapon, is his hook shot.
Yeah. What do you think LeBron's reaction was when he learned that the MVP trophy was going to be named after Michael Jordan?
I'm sure there's an inherent competition there, and he's good. He has a right to stick up for himself. I'm sure he was saying, "Hey, wait a minute, I'm done." But he's not going to catch Michael in total the MVPs. We know that he's not going to do it. So if that's the criteria, he loses. But he is. I count me among those who, when we're talking about the two greatest individual all-around talents in the history of the game, and as opposed to centers, which is a whole other discussion. It's Michael LeBron, and I can make a case for either one.
Yeah, I'm just curious because there is that debate, or there's always been that debate. And if you're LeBron, you're like, wait a minute, my career's not over. I'm going to be the all-time leading scorer. I'm going to be up there in assists. I'm going to be up there with all-stars, longevity, all of those things. In totality, LeBron is going to have a better career than Michael Jordan.
Except that you and I, all right, those of us who were around for Michael and have seen LeBron, let me tell you this. Here's the difference in the two and how they got to the pinnacle and in their respective eras. Michael ascended to the NBA mountaintop when he finally learned how to share, and he was that the 1987 Michael wasn't making that pass to Steve Kerr. He wasn't making that pass to John Paxson. The 1991 Michael would do those things, and that got him rings. So he could have had rings earlier. I will argue that. LeBron didn't ascend to the mountaintop until he recognized the responsibility of being the best player on the floor and acting accordingly. He bombed out against the Mavericks. He did not want the ball. I resisted that, but it's true. I saw him quit against the Celtics in 2010. And so what I'm getting at, if you're in the foxhole, the guy you want is Michael. Michael is the greatest competitor, and the closest thing to him, 1A to him, is Kobe. And LeBron does not enter into that discussion the way with those other two. Sorry, LeBron, that's the fact.
I've been watching the Shaq documentary, and I remember at the time when they broke up that we would remember what they could have been, not what they did. It's the three-peat is one thing. I mean, it's really, I look back on what could have been, not what was. What do you take away from that?
Well, at the time, I sided. When it was going on, and it was the triangle was Kobe, LeBron, and excuse me, it's Kobe, Shaq, and Phil. That was the actual triangle that mattered at that point, not Tex Winter's offense. And I sided with Shaq in that regard, and at that time, we'll never know. Obviously, they should have stayed together. But they're not the only circumstance of that nature we could cite in any sport. But that certainly is one that was true. My only but on LeBron. On Shaq, and ranking him in the hierarchy of all the all-time players is simply he should have been a better rebounder. I think it's preposterous that man did not lead the league in rebounds even once. And rebounding is the number one rule of rebounding is you want the damn ball or don't you? And you start with that. And he was a somewhat indifferent rebounder for far too long in his career.
Yeah, that's interesting. But why did the Celtics work when you had Bird and McHale and Parrish and DJ and Ainge? Was jealousy ever part of the equation there?
No, I know. I mean, the thing is that the Lakers were concurrently great at the same time, and the Lakers had the upper hand. They won 2 out of 3 times they played in the 80s against them, fair and square. So the Celtics accomplished what they should have, I think, with that group. Maybe just no excuses for 85. There is a but in 87 they were battered. McHale was playing with a bad foot, and then their bench was stripped, and they were nowhere near as good as the Lakers. That they took them to 6 was a miracle. So that was that. But I don't know where the Celtics, that group. No, there were mutual admiration. There was, to my knowledge, there was no friction of any substance of any kind with that group.
I enjoyed watching the 20th anniversary Around the Horn last night, Bob. I know you were there for the maiden voyage.
Day one.
Yeah, who would have thought 20 years later?
Well, TV. I mean, it's a remarkable. But what's interesting about this whole scenario is that you can't discuss Around the Horn without discussing PTI. Around the Horn is a spinoff. It is the most successful spinoff probably in American TV sports history, and Bob, the only one that has really. PTI came on the air in November of 2001. I remember in January of 2002 watching a game on TV from University of Arkansas, and someone was holding up one of those face figures, of either Tony or Mike in the stands.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, oh my God, something's going on out there. This is interesting. And it turned out the college audiences were a real staple audience, have been all the time for both shows. But that show caught on, and only because it caught on, that was there agitation or in business there to try and build off it. And as you know, the genius, the one name that didn't get mentioned, I don't believe last night, was the guiding genius behind both shows, and that's Eric Weidholm, who created all the games and all the formats for both shows. And And without whose genius, the shows wouldn't be what they are. But ultimately, we owe our existence on Around the Horn to the personalities of Tony and Mike, who made that show popular and made it possible for us to have a show. And we so it starts with them. And then secondly, what Tony Reale has done as a host, Dan, it's the hardest hosting job, I think, in the history of TV. Think about it. You've got the normal hosting duties of banter and having the producer and the director in your ear, which these people at home never think about. Then you've got listen to these commentaries, these things. You're playing off it, you're ad-libbing, and you're keeping score with these levers all at once. That's juggling a lot. And he makes it seem like it's the easiest job in the world, and it is not. And all hosting jobs I had total respect for. But that one above all, and Tony has been, just grown up in our eyes. As he pointed out last night, he was 25 when it started. And, he was not intending to be a personality. He was a researcher. He was going to be a behind-the-scenes guy. And he showed up on PTI at the 11th hour as the information guy, the guy, and then he transitioned into the show, and here we are 20 years later. Who would have thought?
Yeah. Great to talk to you, Bob. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Oh, it's great to be with you. Thank you.
That's Bob Ryan, longtime Boston Globe sports columnist.